All right, Miss Aurorah is back. Secured entrepreneurs. In this video, Miss Aurorah is going to answer your questions about this Wendy Williams and Wells Fargo situation. You all are wanting to know, is it possible for something like this to happen to anyone? Could it happen to anyone who is banking with Wells Fargo? Right? That's what you're saying. Is this only happening at Wells Fargo? It can happen at any financial institution. So the answer to that is yes. Yes, it can happen to you. Okay. And I was bombarded with phone calls from people who know that Miss Aurorah was raised in the South Bronx, growing up listening to Wendy Williams on the radio and having Wendy Williams, her whole life, just larger than life, because she shared everything. She was transparent about her battle with weight, all of her plastic surgeries, her drug issues, her husband cheating with the woman at the bank at one point when she was pregnant. I mean, you just knew everything about Wendy Williams, and she was just always just so lovely and gorgeous, tall, thick woman. But clearly she did not like that about herself, and she made some drastic, very dramatic changes to her body. All right. So in this video, Miss Aurorah is going to tell the secured entrepreneurs just how it is something like this can easily happen to anybody, and what it is that you're going to need to do to make sure that it does not happen to you. Can we do it? All right. So for those of you who do not know who I am Miss Aurorah Dey, and this is the Secured Entrepreneur Movement. So in January of 2022, Wendy Williams' attorney, LaShawn Thomas, made a request from Wells Fargo Bank asking for Wendy's bank statements because Wendy was suspecting some fiduciary misconduct by the financial advisor at Wells Fargo. Lo and behold, the accounts had already been frozen because this particular financial advisor had already informed Wells Fargo that Wendy Williams was of unsound mind. Now, she had two financial advisors there at Wells Fargo. One was Laurie Schiller and the other was Bernie Young. This is all happening in January of 2022. They report to Wells Fargo that Wendy Williams is of unsound mind, and they produce notes from Wendy Williams' doctor. And Wendy Williams states that they called her doctor and got her medical records without her permission. So now when Wells Fargo gets this information, their job is to immediately petition the court for a financial guardian. Because now they're sitting there with the proof that Wendy Williams has a medical condition that causes her not to be able to manage her own financial affairs. So the exact information that Wells Fargo received in these medical notes from the doctor that was given to them by her financial advisors was that she was at risk of financial exploitation, she was suffering from dementia, and that she was under undue influence. So when Wendy finds this out, she fires this entire team of people in February of 2022. So she fires Laurie Schiller, she fires Bernie Young. Now, while this is happening, the firing, her attorney is now petitioning the court to unfreeze her accounts. Her legal team filed for an emergency order with the New York Supreme Court for her Wells Fargo bank accounts to be unfrozen. In the petition, Wendy Williams claims that the bank is in possession of several $1 million worth of funds, and that she had been denied access to those funds for upward of 2 weeks, which has led her to default or risk defaulting on her bills. The petition further claimed that Wells Fargo is breaching its fiduciary duty to Williams, causing her to suffer imminent and irreparable financial damage. And her legal team demanded that her accounts be unfrozen within 48 hours. So a funny thing happens now. In March of 2022, the same Bernie Young that Wendy fired in February of 2022 petitions the court to be her financial guardian. I said, now this is extremely interesting. She doesn't want anything to do with you. She definitely does not trust you. She has fired you, and you go to the court and petition to be her financial guardian. Now the thing is, Wendy had already accused Lori Schiller of using $100,000 of her money to do certain things, that she didn't have permission to do and things of that nature, which is why this whole thing was going on in January of 2022. She really believed that Lori Schiller was stealing from her. Okay. So now here's Bernie Young talking about, well, I want to be her financial guardian. Okay. That didn't happen. The court did appoint a temporary financial guardian at that time. So that's March of 2022. They granted a temporary financial guardian at that time who was supposed to serve up until July of 2022. So it's in March of 2022 that we hear from Wendy Williams herself. She got on Instagram and she said that Lori Schiller stole $100,000 to hire a law firm to pursue a financial guardianship over her to bar her from her money. This is what Wendy Williams said on Instagram in March of 2022. It's in this same post that she says that her doctor sent Lori Schiller her medical records without her permission. So Wendy is letting all this out in March of 2022. Now, in May of 2022, the court appointed another temporary guardian over Wendy Williams. And this new guardian removed Wells Fargo from having to have any type of operational role with Wendy Williams. And then in August, Mr. Thomas, Wendy Williams' attorney, issues this statement. The real issue is that Wells Fargo, through their advisor, refused to grant Wendy access to her own accounts. This includes the right to check her balance. No bank should have the authority to do that. No one attempted to gain access to any of Wendy's accounts. The Wells Fargo advisor and former manager Bernie Young were the only people with access. They left Wendy to die. Now, I found the attorney's statement to be extremely interesting because if you're watching the documentary, you can clearly see that there is something going on. There is something going on. Now, let Ms. Aurorah answer your questions. How did this end up happening to Wendy Williams? Now, most people do not know when you are banking in these financial institutions, you are signing documents. Unfortunately, they put a lot of documents in front of you with very small print. Very small print. And you're not really going to sit there for 3 hours and read through all of those documents. And the representatives are not trying to explain any of that to you either. They just turn the paper to you, say, sign here, put your initials here. That's what they do. So you don't know what you are agreeing to. Now, the bank was given permission by Wendy Williams on several documents that clearly stated pause or reject instructions for a proposed transaction pending judicial or administrative remedies in the event exploitation, dementia, or undue influence is suspected. Now, it is said that her signature is on several contractual agreements with Wells Fargo to do just that. Now, how many of the secured entrepreneurs know that the court has sealed Wendy Williams' guardianship case? So we don't know all of the facts that were given to Wells Fargo as to why it is a judge did feel it was necessary to appoint a financial guardian over her. We don't know all of the legal facts that were presented. Okay, it's sealed, right? We have to go off of what Wendy Williams' team is sharing with the public. Now, what we also know is that Wendy Williams appointed her son as power of attorney. So here's some mistakes. Wendy Williams did not have a trust. She had no trustee, no successor trustee, right? She appointed her son as power of attorney. It has been alleged that her son was out there spending money like water. They are alleging that he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on certain things, rent, food, all this stuff, right? Which is what led the financial advisors to now begin to investigate what was going on there. And they came to the conclusion, allegedly, that they needed to take action. So clearly, they got some information from the doctor, however this went down, that they were able to present to Wells Fargo because they realized that Wendy was not all together. So once the bank was able to see that, okay, it was not Wendy Williams who made these transactions, this is this young man who has the power of attorney, he will now be stripped of all of that because he is not being responsible with the money. He's not being responsible. There's something going on. All right. So he gets stripped of his power of attorney duties, and she gets this financial guardian. Now, the financial guardian is supposed to be paying bills, supposed to be giving Wendy the things that she needs. All right. Now, I see that in the show, they're saying, Wendy doesn't have any food in the refrigerator. So what's going on there? Okay, we don't know. But it's clear that the guardian is doing whatever job the guardian is supposed to do, because back in, March of 2022, when Wendy was saying, you're going to impede my ability to pay my bills, Wells Fargo issued a statement saying that we will see to it that all of the creditors are paid, but she's not going to be able to touch that money. And this power of attorney is not going to be able to touch this money. Okay, so they did move forward to pay her bills and things like that. And so that has already been proven. So I don't know what the heaven is going on with why it is she doesn't have any food. Okay, now next. So Wendy Williams did not have a trust. She had this power of attorney, which was her son, and he was not doing the right thing. So he gets stripped of that. So in comes this guardianship. Now, this very same thing can happen to you if you do not have your key players in place. If you don't understand what you're in there signing, sometimes there's a lot of legal jargon in a lot of those documents that they have you to sign, and you're not going to understand what is going on. Okay, you're not going to understand what they're really telling you that they're doing, because at all times the account belongs to them anyway. It's not your account. That account belongs to Wells Fargo, and they're doing exactly what Wendy Williams put her name on the dotted line that allowed them to do what they're doing. Okay, that's just it, right? So you would need to have your trust in place, your trustee in place. If you're playing the role of the trustee, of course, you'll have a successor trustee in the event that you become incapacitated, right? But had Wendy Williams had a trust in place and a trustee, a successor trustee, people that were financially responsible, who actually cared about her, all right, she would not be under a court financial guardianship, because she would have had her own people to do the things that she needs them to do while she is clearly incapacitated. The other thing that Wendy Williams could have done is to appoint someone in her estate planning documents, because clearly she had something going on there with Wells Fargo. She could have appointed someone to act on her behalf in the event that she became incapacitated or unable to care for herself or care for her financial needs on her own, things like that. That also was not there. So if you just have all these things set up and you don't have the proper documentation, the proper legal structure, the proper legal entities, and the people in place to assist, okay, this can happen to you. Now we do see that Wendy does need help. She does need help. I can't answer the questions about the family being unable to see her because, once again, the case is sealed. So we don't know what's in there. We don't know why the family is allegedly not able to see her, because I saw in the episode that her niece came by. Okay. I saw that the nephew and the son were saying that they haven't seen her, something like that. But because we don't have the case, we don't know what they said about the family. All we know is what's being alleged. And that is that the son who held the power of attorney was misusing the monies. Okay. So at any time, and we all know, if you use your credit card someplace and it looks crazy to the bank, they're going to email, they're going to text you, they might even call you. It's a fraud alert. Okay. Like, they're putting all the precautions in place to protect their customer. And I think that anyone and everyone who has been watching this documentary can clearly see that it's a possibility that there has been some undue influence. And that was also cited on behalf of Wells Fargo as to why it is they decided to petition the court for the financial guardianship. There was financial abuse and undue influence. And what that means is that this individual is being pressured to do things financially by the individual who wants them to do it. Okay. So they clearly believed that this was going on. Now, I'm looking at Wendy Williams in these outfits and I'm saying, I don't know how sound this is. And I don't know somebody's not telling her, listen, this is not fancy sexy. Like, it's just, I don't know what this is, but you can clearly see that her obsession to be thin, really, it's a lot. So secured entrepreneurs, please be mindful of what it is you are agreeing to in these financial institutions. If you need to go to the financial institution with your attorney so that someone can explain these documents to you, it doesn't matter how long you need to sit in there and read everything, okay, and make a decision whether this is the place you want to do this with, and have the ability to ask questions about what it is that they're telling you that they're going to do, and all of that. You need to make sure that you're on your P's and Q's about that to avoid this situation. The other thing is, you already know that you're going to need to have your trust in place. Have your trustees together. If you're acting as a trustee, as I'm stating, have your people who you know, if something happens to you or when something happens to you, you've got your trustees that know exactly what it is that you want to have happen with your estate. Okay, be prepared. If you have not already, please go down in the description box, click on the link for the Trust Basics course. You can get on to Miss Aurorah's calendar. Let's talk about it, because this thing that is happening to Wendy Williams is severe. I'm not going to be upset with Wells Fargo for anything that they did, because clearly they had the evidence to prove that there was financial abuse going on and she needs help. And this is the way that they were able to go about doing it. Okay. let it not be us secured entrepreneurs. All right. So that's all Miss Aurorah wanted to share in this video. You know, you can find me, Miss Aurorah Dey, at AurorahDeyConsulting.com. And until next time, ta-ta.